Gentlemen, this is going to be a first for the show.
Really? What do you mean?
Well, for the first time in the show's history, we're recording an episode that will not include a conversation about Star Wars.
Dang, that's a pretty big deal for us. Yeah, I mean, but after No Way Home, I really just can't imagine talking about anything else.
I can. There's no way we can ignore episode 5 of Hawkeye.
Yeah, it's true. The two might just be connected, though.
Well, let's just say that everything that happened in the MCU last week means that Marvel deserves its own episode. It's all spoilers from this point forward. This is Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the Porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that Porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was
After we watched No Way Home, Nathan and I both...
Which time?
First
time, okay.
Nate and I both were like, I want to re-download the Spider-Man PS4 game. So we did it, and we've both been playing it since, just because we...
there's some that suggest that the ending of No Way Home is basically setting it up exactly like the game. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Welcome to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. We are the only fan podcast to name a canon Star Wars creature. We haven't named a Marvel creature.
Not yet.
Well, no, it's probably not going to happen. And be endorsed by Ryan Johnson. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of our generation, that there is a story, it is written on our souls, and that these myths speak to that story. And that is why we are talking about everything that happened in Spider-Man No Way Home last weekend, and how it's possible that those events could tie into the finale of Hawkeye this week, and what it all means for the future of the Spider-Verse. I am David. I am the dad.
Hi, Dad.
Hello, gentlemen. And I am honored to be joined every week by my two amazing sons. BB Nate, what
Did you put amazing in?
I've had that in there for weeks. So that's I say it almost every week. But anyway, what are you talking about today? I mean, I know it's Spider-Man related, but how are we doing this? Yeah.
But episode 5 of Hawkeye brought in one of Spider-Man's biggest enemies, and I'm wondering if that means Spider-Man might be coming to Hawkeye.
Sam, what about you?
Yeah, before we talk about that, though, we finally get the chance to share our spoiler-filled thoughts about No Way Home with the listeners, with you guys.
Because Lord knows we've been talking about it amongst ourselves constantly.
Ever since we walked out of the theater.
It's been so hard on social media to not spoil this thing.
Yeah,
because there's so many things I want to talk about. But anyway.
What are you talking about, Dad?
The possibilities for the Spider-Verse and how they've become endless, which means I've got 3 big questions after No Way Home that we need to try to answer. Before we do that, I want to thank our sponsor for this episode, cufflinks.com. My amazing contact there who reached out and sent us those Spider-Man cufflinks and everything, contacted me again today, and they saw the photos on Twitter and were like, send me those photos.
Nice.
So they have them. Cufflinks.com has over 3,000 items on their website, from Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Lord of the Rings, NFL, NCAA, Major League Baseball, NBA, and everything else that you can think of. We are honored to be sponsored by this awesome company. Please follow the show. If you're listening to this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Audible. You guys know we're on audible.com now? Audible?
Really?
Audible? Yeah. Anyway, and a bunch of other podcast apps. If you're listening to it, then it's on an app. Hit the follow button, please. With that, this Friday, we're going to just continue the conversation that we started last Friday with Dion Wilson. If you didn't check that one out, he's the creator of Titanium Comics and Raster Technologies in the Multiverse. And we're talking about independent comic book publishing, but we didn't last episode get a chance to talk much about Web 3.0 and how it's leveling the playing field. So we're going to do that on Friday of this week. Make sure you check that one out. enough about all those preliminaries. Let's talk about some Spider-Man.
Yeah. No Way Home released last weekend. And if the box office take doesn't tell you enough already about the fan reaction to this movie, we'll talk about it here in our review of the movie. But we'll give a quick no spoiler review, and then we'll dive straight into talking about all the amazing things that were in this movie.
Be on your guard. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world.
All right, then, keep your secrets.
You're coming to us. Is as the footsteps of steps.
There are many magic rings in this world, Bilbo Baggins, and none of them should be used lightly.
What did you think about Spidey's new suit?
I love it.
Don't say anything more, but
I think it's awesome. I really do like it a lot.
I thought it was very
Fitting.
fitting. Well, all of his suits are very fitting. But anyway, it's very appropriate based on how the movie ends with that. So
yeah, I agree. All right, well, before we get into spoilers, y'all give your rating on a scale of 1 to 10 Magic Spider-Man Scooby-Doo gauntlets, and then your spoiler-free review.
Oh, wow. All right, 1 to 10, Nate.
1 to 10? I mean, a 9. I don't want to go for a 10 because I don't know if every movie will ever get a 10. But this one is definitely competing for it. But I'm going to just have to settle with a 9 for now.
Okay, why? Give us a non-spoiler review.
The whole movie moved very well paced. I don't think a lot of people said the first 30 minutes were super slow. I don't agree with that. I felt like it was setting up a lot of amazing things in the rest of the movie. There were some fantastic moments that just happened throughout the whole movie, and some things I didn't expect, some things I did expect, but was happy to see anyways. And overall, it was the best Spider-Man movie we've gotten.
All right, you ready?
Ready.
Are you sure?
No.
Are you going to give it?
I'm going to give it a 10.
Yeah.
I am giving this one a 10. If there was a wish list for this movie, this checked off every box on the wish list
And then some.
and delivered it splendidly. This movie, usually the second viewing of a movie is the one that really tells me whether or not
really
it's the
It's a
movie.
deciding one.
It is. The second viewing of this movie, I walked out of this, and my initial reaction was that Spider-Man in the MCU version of Spider-Man is better today than he was before this movie released. And that is an exciting thing. So.
Yeah, I have to agree. I've got to give it a 10, which is high praise coming from us, especially coming from Dad, though. I think every fan ever went into this movie with high expectations.
Very high.
And somehow,
the amount of headcanon from some people was insane.
Somehow it exceeded those expectations. I don't know. I don't think any movie could ever do that, and yet this movie did somehow.
Compare this to, Infinity War, we walked into it with a lot of understanding of what was going to happen and walked out of it a little bit meh.
Yeah,
People, and we've been open about that on this show. Endgame was fantastic. We were super pumped about Endgame when we walked out of it. Your feelings versus Endgame.
Oh, this is way better.
This is way better.
Yeah,
I walked out of this
agree.
movie feeling way better than I did Endgame.
Well, Tony Stark did
right, that kind of hurts.
But there was a lot of things that hurt in this movie too. But still, I just walked out of this movie enjoying the whole thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're spoilers from this point on. Pretty much everything's open season at this point. So if you haven't seen the movie, I don't understand how you wouldn't be spoiled at this point. But
congrats on making
don't let
it
us spoil
so
it.
long.
Yeah, for real. Don't let us spoil it. Go to the theater now. Anyway, let's first talk about really the main reason why we like going to movies so much is watching movies with the fans, especially this kind of movie, this blockbuster pop culture movie. We went to 2 showings, and the first one was in a bit of a smaller theater, and then the second one was in IMAX in Pensacola, right? Talk about what it felt like to be there that first time when we're first experiencing it with those fans, and then when it was like the second time when we were already expecting everything, and then watching the other fans at that second point. Nate, what were your thoughts?
I felt like the first showing, while fantastic, and I really enjoyed the movie, the fan reaction was a little bit lacking at a lot of points. It was very, very quiet, especially on the big parts and everything. And I mean, I didn't get the same vibe as what I got from the second one. Like, nobody reacted to, I guess we're going into spoilers. Nobody reacted to Daredevil. I mean, a few people.
We did.
Oh, we were crazy.
I was like, oh my God.
Clapping.
I was like, they did it. And everybody else was just kind of like, whoa. I literally heard somebody whisper, like, who's that?
And literally, it was for us, it was kind of like, okay, we know what kind of group we're with right now.
Right.
We know what we need to expect.
And when Andrew and Toby showed up, the place kind of was like, woo. And it was kind of like that.
But
and I was like, okay.
we were in Orange Beach, Alabama, in this tiny little theater. So that the environment itself really makes a difference too.
It does.
You know, if you're in not a hectic environment, people aren't going to be as energetic. But what did you think, Dad? Specifically, what were your thoughts about the IMAX showing?
Okay, well, let's talk about the first showing. The first showing, we were in a room full of people that were excited to see this movie.
Yes.
The second showing at IMAX were people that were dying to see this movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was a very different experience. First of all, it's a different experience anyway, because it's IMAX.
Oh.
The visuals are better.
Oh, the sound.
The sound is so much better. The sound wasn't great in our theater.
It wasn't great in the first one.
The first time. It was great in the IMAX. And so all of that combined, plus you had people who they had not seen this movie and they were dying to see it.
Yes.
And so very exciting. In fact, I walked out of the theater. We were driving home from Pensacola. I actually tweeted on our account. I said, second time watching Spider-Man No Way Home was a very different experience. Packed IMAX, serious Spider-Man fans. And then I put hashtag electric with a GIF of Electro, which excitingly, just a little bit ago, IMAX actually replied to that. And they said, hope we helped turn your Spider-Man No Way experience around to an 11 this time around. I've said, seeing anything in IMAX makes it better. Can't wait for The Matrix on Thursday. So that was a lot of fun. It was amazing. But the biggest part of it was these people went nuts.
Absolutely mental.
From when Charlie Cox showed up, there's this dude in the row before us, just to the right, and I see them. They're all talking, and then I don't remember what triggered it for him. Was it his? Do you see the cane? You see the cane first, right?
Yeah. You see it hit the ground, and when it hit the ground, everybody was like, "Oh!" Everybody was like, "No!"
He's leaning forward. He's got his hands in front of his mouth, and then they show Charlie Cox's Matt Murdock, and he's like coming out of his chair, and the whole place is erupting, and I'm like,
okay,
now we know what we're here for this one.
Here.
It was amazing. And for some of these people, there was tears in that second showing. And it was so much fun to see them experience that.
Yeah, I mean, especially when the big scene with Andrew and Toby coming out. Oh my gosh, the place was just erupting.
When you see Andrew in the portal, everybody was kind of like, no way. Like I heard people were like, "Oh my gosh!" And then he starts walking, and then he shows up.
There were three rounds of cheers when the portal opened, when he jumped through the portal,
and then when he revealed his mask, and everybody was just screaming. I look back, there were people out of their seats, and it was just like, okay, yeah, this is where you want to be at this point.
Yeah, and especially when Toby came too, because I think the cheers were even louder when Toby stepped.
Because a lot of the people were that age.
This has been 20 years in the making for some of these fans. I mean, they've been Spider-Man fans ever since Toby hit the silver screen. They've loved Spider-Man. And now every generation of Spider-Man fan can enjoy this movie. You love Andrew, right? He was in this. Me, I'm not really partial to any of them above the other. I kind of like them all. But for every fan, they've got something in this movie that they like, and they executed it really well. But let's talk about something we knew was going to be in this movie the whole time, but that was the villains. We knew that the villains from all of the universes were going to be in this one, but they were handled a bit differently than I think anybody expected them to be. I remember watching it the first time, and eventually Peter had captured them all and put them in the little magic cells or whatever. And
did you guys not get end of Andrew Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man 2 vibes there, where there was like Wasn't there like where they were setting up the Sinister Six? Or something?
Yeah. They had like the Vulture suit, and the Doc Ock suit, and
I kind of thought that's what they were teasing.
I can see that now. Yeah, but they're sitting there in the cells and they're just having a chill conversation with everyone. And I looked over at Savannah. I'm like, these are the most chill supervillains I have ever seen. It felt very different than any other Spider-Man film. Excuse me. But what were your guys' thoughts on how they handled the villains in this movie? Making them pretty sympathetic from the beginning and even making them good in the end.
I think they needed to do that because of the way that the story was going to go. So they're getting ready to position Peter Parker versus Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange being the responsible, understanding the significance of this moment, having to get these guys back there, versus Peter Parker, who is going to build this relationship with them and try to redeem them. And so they needed to have that moment to where you kind of see these characters as real people again, versus just big bad villains with it. And I think that's one of the reasons why they brought Lizard in and they just kind of threw him in the cell and we didn't see anything with him a whole lot for that, because it's harder to get that sympathetic vibe with him. But you get it with Doc Ock because you know what his backstory is. You get it with Sandman because you know what his story is in a big way. I mean, we do with Lizard too, but it's different because
he's a monster.
He's a lizard. But and then Electro. I mean, he's a sympathetic character too. So they needed to set that moment up for everybody with that. And then of course when they bring in
Harry Osborn?
Norman. Yeah. I was going to say Harry too, and I knew one right. So, when they bring in Norman and he's not in the cells and he's truly Norman Osborn.
That was really powerful.
He's having conversations with it and he's, interacted with that. I think that was really important.
I liked how the characters, they were real. It was this whole movie was made to be very human, very emotional on every side and with every character. I felt like it was a great way to show Spider-Man's moral compass in a way and how he has to make these decisions. It was a great way to deliver the great power, great responsibility message throughout this movie. I felt like everything about it was done very well, especially with the villains. And then you had the twist with how evil then Norman becomes when Green Goblin fully sets in, and he's just ruthless, yet again, Peter still has to have this moral compass. And so I really liked how they described that and showed that from the beginning.
Yeah. Of the villains, which one was your favorite in this movie?
I don't know. There were a lot of good ones. I think that everybody's going to say Green Goblin just because of how he was the main villain throughout this movie. Yeah. But I really do like what they did with Doc Ock. I loved how they made him good at the end. I love how they changed that to be fitting a lot like how it was in Spider-Man 2 with Tobey. I think that it was very well done, and I liked how he was the villain for the first half, but a good guy in the second half, kind of mirroring Norman in a certain way.
I liked the way that the Spider-Men, which they actually said it.
Yeah, so
it
it's
is now
Spider-Mans.
confirmed. The proper English for that is Spider-Mans, which then makes me say that the proper English for Batmans.
We don't know
is
that
Batmans.
yet. We don't know that yet.
But anyway, I think I like how the Spider-Mans interacted with the villains from their universes too. There was baggage there. There was relationship there. There was story there, and they let that come through in this. I would say my favorite villain. I loved Green Goblin, and I thought he was an amazing guy, and I love the fact that they gave Norman the opportunity to be that character without the mask in this. So you can see how amazing of an actor Willem Dafoe is in this. But I loved the idea of Doc Ock and how they show that chip is really allowing the tentacles to control him. And when he's not under their control, he truly is a good person. And there was this moment there in the big battle at the end where it looks like maybe he's gone dark again with it, and he's not. And I loved that. So I loved all the villains in it, but I would say Doc Ock was my favorite.
Yeah, that's good. And then we discussed how they're pretty different. Do you still think that they kept the villains feeling true to the originals? Obviously, Electro looked a bit different, but overall, did they feel true?
I feel like Electro felt pretty different from his weird, awkward, nerdy self in Amazing Spider-Man 2, but I didn't mind it. I felt like it worked better. It changed the character in a way that showed how dark he became after he became Electro and how serious he was. And then that was even reinforced when he was talking with Andrew, when Andrew was talking about him even. He's like, he was the sweetest guy ever. And so it shows that change, and I liked that. I do feel like all of them felt very true to the originals. I mean, we didn't see much of Lizard, but that still felt fine. So
I think that they did intentionally change Electro to be much more comic book accurate, a little bit more, more like Jamie. I think Jamie Foxx was kind of like, I'll come back, but type scenario.
I don't blame him.
But they gave an explanation, and it was an explanation that worked. He said things like, I like who I am in this universe, and
the power is different.
The power is different. Yeah, all of those different types of things made it believable versus jarring, which it could have been very jarring.
Yeah,
to have a very different type of Electro in this. They set that up, so I thought that was good.
Well, let's just talk about the elephant in the room here, and that's Toby and Andrew. Well, let's really get into depth about it. But Nate, we kind of talked about how the fans reacted when that portal opened up and we see Andrew. But what was going through your head when that portal first opened up?
I saw Spider-Man and I'm like, okay, those eyes are too big, but in a certain way, I didn't let myself believe it for a while. I was just like, they aren't going to go there. Not this quick, not this early in the movie. I was expecting them to just show up at the end battle and not so soon. And then Andrew just jumped through that portal and I was like, okay, they did it. And they went there. And so it was really amazing to see that, and I was so excited.
Yeah, Dad, how do you feel about how they use these characters? Nate was saying like he thought they were just going to show up for that end battle, right? But they turned out to be more than just extra hands for the fight. What were your thoughts on all of that?
I thought that this was just brilliant because it allowed, first of all, there to be a reason for Andrew and Toby's Spider-Mans to come into this universe and to be a part of this. This is at the moment. This is right after, Peter Parker's just held Aunt May in his arms as she died. Jeez. It's his fault, but in a different way than in these other universes. In the other universes, Uncle Ben dies because of Peter's selfishness. Aunt May dies because of Peter's grace.
Yeah.
And he's questioning whether or not that's wrong. It's the complete opposite of what Toby and Andrew's Spider-Mans went through. And it's at this moment where he could go full on rage in this. And you think he's going to with it. And he could go bad guy in a big way. And Andrew and Toby are brought in these moments to add to be their kind of like guardian angels in a lot of ways from another universe. They're brought in by the multiverse to rescue Tom Holland's Peter Parker from himself. With this. And then of course you get amazing Spider-Man fighting all over and
the fun
and all of that at the end. But the story of this movie is about the relationship between Toby, Andrew, and Tom Holland's Spider-Man and how powerful that relationship is. It was just at an 11 as far as emotional content. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Now, we can tell that these characters have aged since we last saw them, seemingly about the same amount of time as when their movies came out, right? And they've gone through quite a lot. Andrew's Spider-Man touched on that a bit. Do you guys want to see these stories told?
Of course. Well, of course more Andrew than Toby, but yeah, I really do want to see a lot more Andrew, I feel like there's so much more they could do with his character, especially. I'm not sure if I want to see the stories of his past told, but I do want to see the stories of his future. Maybe reconciling the things he did wrong after he redeemed himself with MJ, which that scene with him saving MJ was great. But I really do think that there are a lot of things they could do. There's even rumors coming out that they're in talks with Andrew for his Spider-Man movies to come back again, and I don't know. I feel like there's a lot they can do right now.
I'd love for these stories to be told. I think it's less likely for Toby's because I don't think Toby really cares.
Yeah.
I think Toby was thrilled to be a part of this, but it's sort of like, yeah, I'll do this movie. And then he's ready to move on with his life. Andrew loves playing this character.
Oh, he does.
And Andrew gave 110%. And in a lot of ways, when he steals every scene he's in.
Oh,
for me at least.
Definitely.
With it. And so seeing him pick up 7 years later or whatever after Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and him returning, what I'd like to, well, we'll talk about it in my segment.
Yeah.
I just think that there's a lot there that we need to see, and I think it would be a really compelling story, and I think that Sony would be fools at this point to not tap into the fervor over this character and this version of Spider-Man with it. So,
and to finish off, let's talk about those couple end credit scenes there. So there was that first one, and I think we were all kind of expecting a little something like this, but we see Eddie Brock from the Venomverse show up. He's sitting there at some bar in Mexico, apparently being lectured for hours on end by this bartender about what the heck this universe is. He's just not getting it. And then it ends off with him saying, "Oh, I think I need to go to New York and pay this Spider-Man a visit." And we're like, "Oh, we get to see a Venom Spider-Man fight." And then we all forget that everybody who knows who Peter Parker is gets pulled away and he disappears, and we think that's it. But then they have a little something there at the end that, you right there, Nate? You seem a little perplexed.
Why did Eddie Brock get pulled over?
Because he knows who Peter Parker is.
How?
Wait, how did he get pulled over in the first place? That's a good... Venom. Venom has knowledge.
that's right.
I was waiting for you guys to pick up on that.
Yeah.
It's
I was
not
just
Eddie
like-
Brock that knows it. It's the symbiote
Yeah.
that knows it. It's Venom that knows who Peter Parker is,
Okay, yeah.
which is still bizarre.
Yeah.
We still don't know that story
Yeah.
with it, but it'll be interesting to see.
I'm going to learn more.
Yeah, but then there's that little bit of symbiote left, and there's your,
We'll talk about that.
suit.
there's your threequel hook or quadruple hook.
Anyway, okay, we'll keep going.
And then I think the one that we're all most excited about was the... it's not a post-credit scene. It was the trailer for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. And I think there's really just about one part in that whole trailer that I think has got us all excited, especially you, Dad. What you freaked out when you saw this trailer. Oh my gosh, you were losing your mind.
I loved it.
When we saw...
Here's why. There's two reasons. One, I think that the most compelling character in What If was Strange Supreme.
Easily. I think we all agree on that.
Secondly, this brings What If. It answers all the questions. The question was, is it really canon? Is it full on canon?
And why? And why is What If being made?
Yes.
What is the
It's tying into this. And now multiverse stories, What If stories, you could reasonably see any of these storylines from What If make their way into live action in the future.
Yeah.
Which would be a ton of fun. And just Doctor Strange fighting alongside an evil Doctor Strange is
alongside or against?
It could be either one.
I'm saying
that's another show.
That isn't.
Anyway.
Yeah, well, we had high expectations for this movie, but I think it's safe to say that this movie met them and went far beyond. This movie was a ton of fun, but it also developed Tom Holland's Spider-Man into the Spider-Man we needed for the MCU. We can't wait to see what comes of this character in the future.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and put in here a dad moment.
I am your father.
So the most powerful moments in No Way Home are tied to Peter Parker's battle to do the right thing. Peter believes that these villains are worthy of redemption, even though he has no reason to. But this belief is tested to the limits after Aunt May's death at the hands of Green Goblin. Peter wants to destroy Norman Osborn, and he comes out and he says it. But it's also in this moment that our other Peter Parkers help Peter understand that this is a path he doesn't want to go down. And all the way to the very end of the battle, we aren't really sure what he's going to do. We didn't even talk about that ending with it. But again, all the way to the end, these other Peters are committed to standing with him, to see him through this crisis of faith. There are so many powerful lessons in this movie, but the two greatest are that we must believe in redemption and that we all need people in our lives who are willing to stand with us when that belief falters. So good segment, Sam.
Yeah.
Good segment.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I was thought you said it was, yes, it's a good dad moment. That's what I was thinking in my head. Sorry, I will be honest. I was zoned out for a second.
No worries. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's coming up on the next segment. Apparently there's an MCU that people hate. And this movie
that existed.
proved it. With it. Tom Holland apparently seems to be done with Spider-Man.
That was quick.
And Benedict Cumberbatch put his life in mortal danger last week.
Oh my gosh.
And that's all next on Bad News.
This is not going to go the way you think.
You know, we didn't really talk about it much, but we actually did crash the red carpet.
We did.
Yeah.
Kind of, in a way. I mean, not really. We didn't actually get on the red carpet, but we did get within 20 feet of it for the entire evening.
That was fun.
That was.
With it. And we're going to talk a little bit about that on the Bad News segment coming up. But one of the things that was really cool was we were actually out there wearing our cufflinks.com stuff.
Yeah, we were looking snazzy.
Sam, you had that beautiful red tie with the Spider-Man
I like that tie.
logo face thing on it. And BB Nate appropriately
Wearing my amazing Spider-Man tie.
Yeah,
Of course.
looked good. We all had our Spider-Man socks on. You guys had Spider-Man cufflinks as well.
Yep.
You had some red ones. You had the
emblem.
black emblem, and I had some gold ones with it. I do think it was why when a certain person within the cast, which we'll talk about here in a minute, made his way down the thing, that he stopped right in front of us and took a bow.
Yes,
I think
I
it was
agree.
because of the amazing cufflinks that we were wearing.
Real recognizes real.
Yeah, they have. What's that?
Real recognizes real.
It's like game recognizes game.
Oh, okay. I didn't understand what that was. Dad
I
moment
got it.
there. All right. Yeah. So thank you guys at cufflinks.com for sending those out to us. They have so many things: cufflinks, ties, socks. It can be some amazing stuff that you can look at. It's probably too late to get it for Christmas, but since it's Tuesday and it's 4 days away from Christmas. But
You
anyway,
can still just get it and apologize for it
if
being
you
late,
forgot
Get
to
some
get
overnight
somebody
shipping,
a
maybe?
Christmas gift, you can send it. You can get that to him and send it to him later, and blame it on.
New Year's.
You can, if it doesn't get there on time, just blame it on COVID. That's what everybody.
There we
says.
go.
All right. With it,
Yes, they have over 3,000 items on the website covering not just cufflinks, but ties, tie bars, socks, money clips, and other great gifts out of all fandoms.
And if you do decide to do some last minute shopping for something,
or if you get cash in your stocking.
oh
Some
yeah,
straight
there you go.
cash.
Well, I don't know how you'll use cash.
Well, you know what I mean. Money.
Deposit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you want, you can go on to cufflinks.com and use the code Tatooine15 at the checkout to get 15% off everything on the site with no minimum. So if you want some cool Spider-Man cufflinks, so you can look almost as good as us. I don't think you can quite look as good as us. But
Yeah.
no, you'll end up looking better.
But when the
you get some cool
Sorcerer
stuff.
Supreme takes a bow in front of you, it might be because
At
you're
Boost
wearing-
Free, go a little bit.
It's not really the Sorcerer Supreme. Technicality.
That's true. If you want to look out and learn a little bit more about it, head on over to cufflinks.com today. Remember to use that code Tatooine15 at checkout.
Well, you want the bad news or the really bad news?
So Spider-Man No Way Home box office grosses obliterate Kevin Feige's MCU Phase 4 installment. Obliterates. This headline from Bounding Into Comics is absolutely terrible. It is written to inflame the emotions of fans who watch YouTube channels like Geeks and Gamers. And in the end, the information in the article isn't all that bad, but it's just a breakdown of No Way Home's box office super success last weekend in comparison with the other MCU films released in 2021 and even before the pandemic. The problem with this headline is including the phrase MCU in the headline. It is ridiculous. It is inflammatory. There is nothing beneficial about it. And the only reason to include that in there is to generate clicks and stir up controversy that really isn't there.
Nope.
As someone who lives in this space as much as we do, I had never even heard the phrase MCU until this. And I'm sickened by that headline. And that's why it's going to get a clickbait level 10.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Well, Tom Holland says he's ready to say goodbye to Spider-Man to pursue new dreams. Leave it to We Got This Covered to generate a headline like this one. They're taking Tom Holland's words out of context in order to suggest he doesn't want to return to the role of Spider-Man, which couldn't be further from the truth. The article shares some quotes that are clearly Tom's attempt to be gracious and self-deprecating. While Tom has said that he thinks it would be a mistake to play Peter Parker into his 30s, all signs point to Tom continuing to play Peter Parker in the future. Clickbait level 6.
Yes, and this next one.
This next one's a lot of fun.
It is. Benedict Cumberbatch terrifies his security so he can greet Marvel fans. A giant freaking robot has no trusted and proven source for this one. And what makes it even more hilarious is we were there in person when this moment happened. At the No Way Home premiere on the 13th, Benedict Cumberbatch playfully ran away from his security to come down to those of us on the far end of the receiving line. But since we have it on video ourselves, we can assure you that while his security did run with him to try to keep up, they weren't terrified by anything going on.
They didn't look scared in the least.
It was all playful.
They were probably just more scared of their jobs because they didn't get him back on the red carpet.
Or that he would trip and hurt himself or something like
this
that.
Clickbait, it gets a level of 8.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
BB Nate, you're just going to keep things going. Let's go, baby.
Going. So we had a huge episode of Hawkeye last week, and it might just tie into No Way Home in a way. So let's just get to it.
Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Yeah, I can fly.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
The people in this room, which one is A, wearing a spangly outfit, and B, not of use?
There's only one God, man, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
That man has no limits.
Ever since we first watched this episode, ever since Yelena was brought into this series, I was excited because Savannah, my girlfriend, is a huge fan of that character. And then when I see her in this episode making a bowl of mac and cheese and then pouring sriracha in it, I got really excited.
I immediately thought of your girlfriend.
Yes, because she loves doing that for some reason. I didn't get it. But we watched this episode before her. I'm like, oh my gosh, she needs to watch this episode. So a few days later when she was getting to it, no joke, she had made mac and cheese with sriracha in it. While she was watching the episode, she was eating sriracha mac and cheese.
What are you saying? Are you dating a Black Widow?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
So this episode was titled appropriately Ronin, and we had so let's just get into rating of 1 to 10 in honor of Savannah Sriracha
and Yelena
bowls of and Yelena's bowls of sriracha mac and cheese. What did y'all think of it?
1 to 10.
1 to 10.
I'll give it an 8. I think it was good. The end obviously was like mind blowing, but after kind of No Way Home, that's like small potatoes, it feels like. But it was a decent episode. The issue is I can barely really remember what happened between Yelena showing up and the end.
Maybe this have a lot to happen the day after, and then the day after that, we went to go see Spider-Man.
Right. So there's a lot going on in my brain. I'm having a hard time remembering it, and I'm sure as we discuss it, it'll come back to me, but just my initial reaction is an 8, I would think.
I was 7.5.
Okay.
With it was a fun episode. I mean, you're right. There are two big moments. That entire conversation between Yelena and Kate Bishop was genius. It was beautiful. It was hilarious. Yelena was classic Yelena. Everything you love about those moments from Black Widow were jammed into that 3 minutes with that. And so it was so much fun. At the same time, I don't remember what else happens in the episode that much.
Not much.
Until we get the revelation that Eleanor is working.
There's a few things, but I really only touch on those. So let's just get into it. At the beginning of the episode, we do see
that was
blip
big
from the eyes of a blipper. We don't have a title.
A blipper.
A blippy. A blip eye, or whatever. But we get to see a blip from the eyes of a blipper in this episode, and that person was Yelena. So let's just talk about it all. What did y'all think of Yelena in this episode and her backstory and even the scene with Kate?
That was powerful.
Oh, yeah.
That was a really powerful scene when she blips and then she's coming back. At first, I couldn't even figure out that she was blipping. It took me a second to realize what was happening. And then she starts coming back and I realize it. And she's in the bathroom. The paint changes and all this. And you start realizing what's going on. I think is this the first time we've seen someone actually blip and then come back at the same time?
Yes.
With that. So that was really powerful to see that reaction when she comes back out. We didn't even talk about, are we going to talk about that Black Widow at all?
No.
Okay. So she's in the house of a Black Widow that's like
Anna
working for like she's on her own.
She's an independent contractor to kill.
Exactly.
Right.
And so there's that weird stuff that's going on with it. It was and then for Yelena to be like, I need to find Natasha. I need to tell her I'm okay.
Oh,
that just like was like take what's going on, and they've been setting that up because the whole series has been about Clint dealing with the death of Natasha. So now you're dealing with Yelena dealing with the death of Natasha. It was,
yeah. I thought it was good. We didn't know that she blipped. I don't think.
No, we didn't.
So even just that revelation was interesting. And I like how they're continuing to use this blip throughout stuff. They're still mentioning it in No Way Home. They obviously got Hawkeye now. It's really cool because it changes these characters and it forces them to develop in ways that we don't expect. But the actual seeing of it was interesting. And now, because of that, doesn't she become an independent contractor like the other Black Widow? And that's why she's doing what she's doing.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I'm glad we're getting more of this character. She was so much fun in Black Widow. And she is the new Black Widow of the MCU. So I'm glad we're getting more.
So let's just talk about the whole scene with her and Kate. What did y'all think about that?
Yeah, I mean, Dad kind of touched on it, but it was just a lot of fun. Fun, but also kind of uncomfortable the entire time. Just like Kate was feeling, where like she's like, you would have killed me. She's like, oh yeah, you wouldn't have even gotten the door closed. Like it was like funny, yet I'm not sure I can let my guard down. And then at the end, it flips. She's like, don't get in my way and stuff. It perfectly showcases how Yelena is a fun kid, like almost like a kid, but she's also a trained assassin, and she's not gonna let things get in her way. So I think she'll be a fun, it showcases how she's going to be a fun addition to the MCU is really what that scene is.
I think that they're setting up. I'm of the opinion, I know people on social media, on Twitter, we've interacted a little bit with some of these questions, that there's a concern that Clint is going to die at the end of this episode coming up.
You don't give Clint his suit and then take it away.
I don't think that he's going to die. I don't think you end a Christmas series
make Clint
3 days before Christmas with that happening. I do think, and I think I've said this even on the show previously. I know I've said this on our Twitter account and some other things. I think that he retires.
Yeah.
At the end of this, I think that he gets resolution with the Ronin situation, and I think that he moves on. He realizes he doesn't want to put his family in danger any longer. We're going to find out what's happening with his wife, whatever her name is. Laura, is that it? We're going to find out what that storyline is in this next episode. But what that sets up is, we already have said Yelena is the new Black Widow,
right?
In this, the new Natasha type situation. I think that Kate Bishop is the new Hawkeye, and I think that the relationship between the two is going to be very similar. You do recall that Clint in previous episode was saying that he didn't take the shot.
Yeah, he was sent to kill.
It was the shot he didn't take.
Yeah.
You do recall that Kate had the opportunity to take out Yelena.
Ah, that's cool.
It's the shot she didn't take. It's going to be the same type of situation. I think that you're going to see these two teaming up in the future with this. And I think that's going to be a ton of fun. So,
yeah, I agree. Well, let's just get to the good stuff. Since not much happened in the middle, we saw Kate talking with her mom about some things. The mom finally knows about Sloane and Jack. Jack was arrested. Kate called Clint a lot. Clint went to the Avengers Memorial, started talking to Natasha and apologized for what he was about to do, and we end up with where we're going to talk about. And that was a good recap.
That was good. You're skilled at that stuff.
The ending in this episode is one of the best things in MCU TV history, in my opinion. Everything about it was just fantastic. We get an amazing fight between Maya and Clint, where we find out that Maya's boss tipped Ronan off to kill her father. Kate saves Clint before Maya kills him, and they go to Grill's apartment just for Kate to get a text from Yelena showing that Kate's mom is working for Kingpin and that Yelena was hired by Eleanor. So, what do y'all think about this twist, and is Kingpin actually showing up in the series finally?
I'll be honest, I've had to have this explained to me like 3 times just to make sure I understand it, but it is a lot of like hands that are exchanged here. Mm-hmm. The mom works for Kingpin. Mm-hmm. Apparently she's getting worried about Hawkeye digging around in the stuff. Mm-hmm. So she tells Kingpin. Kingpin goes to Valentina, and Valentina sends Yelena to kill Hawkeye. Yes. Am I following this correctly?
That's the theory train.
Okay. Yeah. Because it's, again, that's a lot of steps here. But
which makes me believe that when they filmed that scene originally for the end of Black Widow, which remember was supposed to have come out a year plus ago, right? With this, that they probably didn't have that set up the way that they were setting it up, and they had to do some fancy stuff with the Hawkeye series to bring it together.
Right. Yeah. But other than me not following things, yes, I loved it. I thought it was great. I think we were all kind of expecting it with all the little rumors that were floating around before. But the fact that, I mean, Kingpin was already in the MCU, but bringing him into the larger MCU is a big deal. And especially, I know we're going to touch on this, with Spider-Man and things like that. He's a huge Spider-Man villain just as much as he is Daredevil. So this is a big, big deal. I loved it. I was super excited. Yeah, it was good.
Bringing Kingpin in signals so many questions going forward. Does. Because you wonder then, is this a different Kingpin than the Daredevil Kingpin from the Netflix series? Or does this make the Netflix series and therefore Jessica Jones, Luke Cage,
Iron Fist, and the Defenders.
Does that make that all canon again? If so, how does this bring it in? My understanding is Kingpin goes to prison after season 3 of Daredevil. So what does that mean? Is he out of prison now? And so all of these questions kick in here.
I do think it would be good and smart for the MCU to drop the Netflix. Let that finally solidify that it's its own universe, because Iron Fist was received so poorly.
Really?
But they don't have to bring Iron Fist in.
I know, but that was a very big part. The Defenders was a huge part of Daredevil, and even in himself. And it is MA, and so that would allow a lot of things. And with when Kevin Feige said about Charlie Cox and Daredevil.
Get a T-shirt where it's like Kevin Feige crossed out Kevin Feige. Like
with what he said about before No Way Home came out, when somebody asked him about Daredevil, he said that if Daredevil does show up in the MCU, Charlie Cox will be playing him, not reprising his role as Daredevil, playing Daredevil. He would be playing Daredevil as a character.
Yeah, so. I agree in that you kind of just need to let the Netflix stuff be its own. I think it's fine if they do decide to bring more of those characters back, having the original actors reprise their roles. I think that's a great idea, because from what I've heard, all the actors did great. But actually making those stories canon is difficult. I don't think you can do that. So just bringing in the characters, having them be functionally the same is a good idea. But yeah.
I think that just Kingpin in itself changes the entire game going forward.
Definitely.
In the MCU. So I think that was an exciting moment.
Well, speaking of Kingpin and the changing of the MCU, let's get into some Spider-Man theories for Hawkeye. So what looks to be the final set piece of this show is the Rockefeller Center. And as we see in the end of No Way Home, Spidey is in very close proximity.
He swings down in front of it,
to that place. Exactly. Yeah. He does. We also see Hawkeye falling in a couple trailers in Rockefeller Center, and then he's just on the ground.
And did you confirm that?
I did. I watched the original official trailer where we see a little bit more of him falling. He never crashes into the tree, but we do see the tree on the ground later. And in the new trailer, we see him on the ground with a torn up shirt, and then Kate just goes, "Whoa," while looking up, which is a little bit interesting. But do y'all think we see Spidey in this episode? And if so, do you think that Kingpin becomes the big bad for Spidey right now since he's kind of staying the friendly neighborhood?
Okay, if you would have asked me this a week ago, before we saw No Way Home,
you'd say, heck no.
I'd say there's no way
chance.
Spider-Man is showing up in this. But at this point, I'm going to just say, yeah, let's go. I think he is. I think he's going to be a part of it. I think that they're bringing it in. I think it's the big a moment. It's a Christmas present to everybody at the end of this. It's going to surprise it. It's going to make everybody over Christmas break go back and watch Hawkeye that didn't.
If you didn't watch it,
you're
why
foolish.
not?
Yeah, go back and watch it. It's great. I think that that's definitely going to happen. And I do think that the impact of Kingpin being in this, you said it yourself, Sam, Kingpin is a big Spider-Man villain, and it's not Spider-Man with the Avengers. It's not Spider-Man, teaming up with anybody else. It's
finally friendly neighborhood.
It's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man dealing with crime in New York City.
Amen.
And that is Kingpin level villain.
Yeah.
With that. And so I'm
wondering though, do you think they might be juking us out with this whole Spider-Man thing?
Very possibly.
I do think that we might see another hero show up, but I'm wondering, could it be Daredevil instead?
And that would be cool too.
I think it would fit as well. But also, either of these would fit. Heck, let's just have all three of them. Let's have Hawkeye, Daredevil.
Now you're just talking crazy.
Spider-Man.
I mean, that'd be like seeing Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man.
That's crazy.
So.
Everything in me wants Spidey to show up in this next episode, but part of me, you got to be careful because this isn't Spider-Man starring Hawkeye, because if you have too much Spider-Man, then it just overpowers things.
It also, they dealt with that very well in No Way Home. It wasn't Doctor Strange starring Spider-Man.
No.
It was a Spider-Man movie. So.
Right. So I'm just saying you got to be careful with that.
I get it.
But also, is it too soon after No Way Home to bring in the character? Like, when does the spoiler ban release?
Oh, I think
it was
almost
today.
a week.
I think it was today. It was when it
Okay.
And also it's not a humongous spoiler if Spider-Man does show up.
That's true. He just
shows up and he has a different suit. Unless
Clint, it
doesn't
becomes
know.
clear that he doesn't know Peter Parker.
Yeah.
That's the big question with it. All right.
Yeah, well, okay. I want to round this segment off. Give me one out of this world prediction for the finale, real quick. Just speculate irresponsibly.
I don't know. I feel like Spider-Man showing up is big enough. Jeez, they always leave us with something big at the end of pretty much every one of these series. Not like Spider-Man showing up big, but something like big for the future. And I don't know what they could do with that, with this series, because it feels so like grounded and almost like not small in a bad way.
Street level.
Yeah, street level. I don't know what you can. Maybe they tease a new Daredevil Kingpin storyline or something. I don't know.
It's hard to think of anything bigger than Spider-Man.
Right.
Maybe your thing, BB Native, Spider-Man and Daredevil at the same time, which would be bizarre with it. And I think it might break the internet.
That would be insane.
So why don't I'm going to go with both of those.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love to see Daredevil and Spider-Man team up with Hawkeye.
That's
to
like
round off this series.
Everything you could ever want.
That would be amazing. Well, we have a very big episode tomorrow, and I think this will be the best finale for MCU TV so far if they can pull it off. I just hope Clint gets home in time for Christmas.
He will get home in time
Again,
for Christmas.
Keep a lookout for a post-credit scene because you don't want to miss it.
And Val will probably be a part of that one. So. Ooh. All right. It's time for some movie stuff. There was a movie that came out this weekend. It did pretty good in the box office. We'll talk a little bit about that. There's another couple movies coming out this week. Sing 2 is a big one. We're definitely going to make sure. No, we're not going to sing that one. Kingsman, maybe it looks okay. Matrix Resurrections comes out. We're going to talk about that and a couple of other things here on Movie Moments.
At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge.
So we have a few new releases this weekend.
So we have.
I was yawning when you started. The first one, I think we're all super pumped about. We got Matrix Resurrections. It's a return to a world of two realities. One, everyday life. The other, what lies behind it. To find out if his reality is a construct, to truly know himself, Mr. Anderson will have to choose to follow the White Rabbit once more.
Whoa.
The director is Lana Wachowski.
Whoa.
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 So, anyway.
The director is Lana Wachowski. I think that's how you say the first name. The cast is Keanu Reeves, Carrie-Anne Moss, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, and Jonathan Groff. The studio is Warner Brothers. Boo.
Cool.
I'm sorry.
Not bitter at all over that DC stuff, are you? Yeah.
The MPA rating is R for violence and some language. A lot like the first movie. The next movie is one that we're gonna have to see opening night. I feel
no, we're not. No. But we'll see. We may see it eventually.
We may see it eventually. Yeah. Sing 2. It is about Buster has turned the New Moon Theater into a local hit, but Buster has his eyes on a bigger
I feel like we're talking about our
prize.
dog.
Right?
I know.
I'm like, what is our dog doing? Debuting a new show at the Crystal Tower Theater in glamorous Red Shore City, but with no connections. Buster and his cast, including harried mother pig Rosita, rocker porcupine Ash, earnest gorilla Johnny, shy elephant Mina, and of course porcine provocateur Gunther, whatever it is, have to sneak their way into the world famous Crystal Entertainment offices run by ruthless Muggle wolf Jimmy Crystal. Mogul. Okay. The director is Garth Jennings. The cast is Matthew McConaughey, Reese Witherspoon, Scarlett Johansson, and Tori Kelly, and a few others.
Yeah. Who did Matthew McConaughey? Really? He's Buster?
Mm-hmm. The studio is Illumination Entertainment, and it is rated PG for some rude material and mild peril and violence. The next one is The King's Man. In the early years of the 20th century, the Kingsman Agency is formed to stand against a cabal plotting a war to wipe out millions. The director is Matthew Vaughn for the first time in the Kingsman series. It is not Guy Ritchie. The cast is Ralph Fiennes.
Fiennes. Yeah.
That's weird. Gemma Arterton.
They have a weird name. Your name's weird.
Rhys Ifans.
Rhys Ifans. Do you know who that is?
I think so.
It's a lizard.
Oh. And Harris Dickinson. The studio is 20th Century Fox, and it is rated R for sequences of strong bloody violence, language, and some sexual material.
And my understanding is they had to cut 4 scenes from it in order to avoid an NC-17 rating.
Yikes!
And those were violence scenes.
Yeah, they're known for being pretty violent. At least the movies are. Oh, first, speaking of The King's Man, we got a few trailers this week. We got a trailer for The Lost City, the first one.
You watched it?
I did.
It's got Tom Holland in it, right?
No.
That's thinking of something else.
That's Uncharted.
Oh, yeah.
This movie looks like it could be really fun.
This has got Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock
and Brad Pitt.
Okay.
It looks like it could be a lot of fun, or it could just be absolutely terrible.
Maybe it should have gone straight to Netflix.
Yeah. And it probably will if it doesn't make much money, like a certain other movie this weekend.
Oh, don't talk about that one.
We got another trailer, the final trailer for The King's Man. And then actually, this trailer made me more interested in it than the first trailer.
But we haven't seen any of the others. Do you think we need to see the other movies to see this one?
Certainly.
Probably
I would
the
imagine.
other two, yeah.
Yeah, but this is a prequel.
It probably would benefit if you saw the others. I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay.
The first box office numbers, Spider-Man No Way Home came out on top to no one's surprise.
Wow.
With $260 million domestic and $601 million globally.
$601 million globally in one.
That blew out
weekend.
Every premiere in 2021, their whole run. It blew it out in this one.
The $260 million blew it out.
Exactly. For the domestic. And even, it was insane.
Yeah.
The second one was Encanto with $6.5 million and 81 total domestic.
And pretty good stuff.
West Side Story with $3.4 million and 18 million total domestic.
I still want to see that. I still want to see both of those with it, but yeah. Okay. Good job on all your stuff, BB.
Thanks.
Nate, you
Good
worked
job,
hard.
Nate.
You had a lot. You didn't get the chance to stop talking. Congratulations on enduring. All right. Amy Pascal let the cat out of the bag a few weeks ago when she said that there is a new Spider-Man trilogy of films in the works, with the first definitely starring Tom Holland. The calmer heads at Marvel and Sony walked that back for just a little bit. But then on Sunday, Kevin Feige made it clear that story development was already underway for the next Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, specifically saying he didn't want people to have the angst that they had after the last Spider-Man movie. That they are working it out. So that means that I've got 3 big questions that we need answers to after No Way Home.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
But that ending of the movie, when they're literally standing on the giant shield of Captain America and Peter Parker and Norman Osborn are just going at it, and Peter Parker is just destroying Norman Osborn, and then he reaches over and picks up the glider, and he's literally getting ready to go John Walker on him. On Captain America's shield. The symbolism there is unbelievable. When you watch this movie again, go back and pay attention to that. It's unbelievable. All right. We talked a lot about what happened in the movie. We talked about whether or not anything can happen in the future with the Hawkeye finale coming up this, I guess tomorrow. Let's talk about what the future is after Spider-Man No Way Home. I've got 3 big questions, and we'll break them down into some different questions. I'm just going to hit you guys with these questions. You guys ready for it? Mm-hmm. All right. Big question number 1 surrounds what is next for the MCU Spider-Man. Sam, is Uncle Ben actually alive?
No.
Okay,
I
why
don't think
not?
so. I think that they are deciding to just move away from that trope. Not trope, but we've seen that storyline done enough times to where they decided to switch it up, have Aunt May be that version of the character, and they're just going to leave it there. He is alone in New York, living by himself now. You don't need an Uncle Ben. You don't need an Aunt May anymore. He is alone without a parental figure, I guess, at this point.
What about you, BB Nate? What do you think?
I don't think he is, and I don't really want him to be. I do want to see that loner Spider-Man. I want to see the Spider-Man we get in Spider-Man PS4, living on his own. And
even though Aunt May's still alive.
Yeah.
Well,
but
anyway.
Yeah.
Don't spoil it for anybody that hasn't played the game. So.
But you should, really. It was great. But I don't think that Uncle Ben is alive, and I think we're going to get that confirmed in the Spider-Man Freshman Year series. So.
I wonder if Uncle Ben left them, because it's never actually said in the series, from what I remember, that he died. We assume it because it's Uncle Ben.
Right.
He left him. Remember, one of the big storylines of No Way Home is redemption, is forgiveness, is that type of thing. And so now you've got a Peter Parker who Uncle Ben doesn't know him.
No, doesn't even know who Peter Parker is.
Exactly. And they come across each other, and now Peter has this opportunity to re-enter Uncle Ben's life and do it from a position of forgiveness. I think it would be really powerful. All right, BB Nate,
yes.
Is the Kingpin the big bad guy for the future of the Spider-Verse?
I think he might be, at least for right now. I feel like Kingpin is going to be the big bad. I feel like he's being introduced in this Hawkeye series for a reason. I feel like we got the street level New York Spider-Man for a reason. And of course, Kingpin runs the streets of New York City. So I feel like it would make the most sense. For right now, I do think that Kingpin is a big bad.
Yeah, I agree. I think with what they're doing with this character, like Nate said, there's no other villain that would fit better than Kingpin, because you can have it be a running story, right? You don't have to have something like Venom, which is it'll be a big crescendo of a story with his culminating with this big fight, but then it's kind of just over. With Kingpin, he can keep coming back, and he's still got his fingers and everything throughout the city. Like what you'll notice that when you're playing the Spider-Man game, he's still running stuff in prison. Like, he's a perfect villain for what they're doing with the character now.
I Sam, will Peter Parker win over MJ, or will MJ figure out that Peter is Spider-Man once again?
I don't know if he's going to have a love interest or anything. And if so, I don't even think it'll be MJ. I don't know.
I think the love interest has to be MJ.
Okay. All right. But the reaction there at the end where he just left her is because he wants to protect her. So I don't know how they're gonna handle that.
I don't think he's gonna have MJ figure it out, and I don't even think that MJ is going to figure it out. I think we do see a loner Spider-Man for a while, and I want to see that. I want to see the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man without attachments, but wanting to protect everybody. I'd love to see that. And of course, I can't wait to see Liz as Black Cat. I'm already speaking it. It's going to happen. But
Liz shows up in No Way Home on a Time magazine cover.
Exactly.
Exposing
saying that
Peter
Spider-Man, Peter Parker was a liar.
Yep.
Oh,
yeah,
buddy.
So, which is a really
and she already forgot that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, so she just has a vendetta against Spider-Man now.
Yeah, because
her dad's
I honestly do think that MJ is going to stay in the storyline.
Okay.
I think that the conflict is going to be him trying to keep her from finding out that he's Spider-Man
to
now.
Keep her safe.
See, previously in previous movies, it was like him wanting to tell her. Now it's him trying to keep it from happening because he's trying to protect her. She's going to figure it out with
I like
this.
that.
I think she probably will like those memories will get unlocked. Remember, she's still wearing the Black Dahlia necklace. There's a reason behind that. All right. That was big question 1. What's next for the MCU Spider-Man? Let's talk about big question number 2. Is the symbiote headed to New York City? BB Nate, could we see the MCU's version of Eddie Brock take on the symbiote and become this universe's Venom?
I don't know. We don't really have an Eddie Brock in this universe yet, so I think it would be possible to see a new version. We might see it on somebody else, but I think if we do see it attached to Eddie Brock, we might see a quick fight. We might, get the Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 3, but then I do think it would be very smart to have that Venom become Agent Venom, and then it would increase the space. You could bring that in with Guardians of the Galaxy, have that stuff
or
tie
Thunderbolts.
in, or Thunderbolts, or even Thor, and you can have a lot of that stuff tie in with Agent Venom, and then we could get more stuff with the symbiotes that could bring in some Sony stuff at some points if they really want to, with the knowledge of the symbiote. And I think that we're gonna get Black Suit Spider-Man in the next movie.
I hope
we're gonna get that whole thing. He's gonna try to protect somebody. Maybe he's trying to protect MJ from somebody, and he gives into that suit, and maybe we see a joke as Bully Holland will come in. I'd love that.
Yeah, I think you have to have the symbiote headed for New York. As to who it could attach to, I mean, sure, Eddie Brock's the obvious choice because that's usually who it is. But I mean, I think it would be interesting if they switched it up and had it attached to Flash or something. Even though I think that character's a little too silly.
Yeah, he's a little silly in this one, but doesn't he attach to Flash Thompson in one of the storylines in the comics?
Yeah. But Flash he's a jerk in this storyline, but he's not really a bully like he is in the other storyline. So I'm not sure you could have that happen. But yeah, I think that they'll introduce some sort of Eddie Brock or maybe even a Harry Osborn that it could attach to. But we see it, and I don't think it's going to be a one-off thing. Where they just bring in the symbiote and fight and it's over. They're going to continue that storyline. They're going to maybe bring in, because in the comics, there's all sorts of symbiotes other than just Venom and Carnage. I mean, there's tons and tons of them. So you can bring that in. You can have these be recurring characters and stuff, and that would really just flesh out this universe even more.
Okay. Big question number 3. Is there a future for our other Spider-Mans? Let's start with Tobey Maguire. Any chance we see him, BB Nate, with a Tobey's Spider-Man 4?
Like you said, I'm not sure if Tobey would like to come back to this role for a whole movie. I think that the fans would be excited to see him back in this role. I just don't know what you do for Spider-Man 4. At this point, it feels like his story is pretty closed out. I feel like we got a little bit more closure for him in this movie, even because he's trying to do better. You could tell he's started to settle down. He's becoming more of a low-level Spider-Man again, and he's kind of he's living his life now, and he's happy with where he is. And so I feel like there's just not a chance we can see another one.
Yeah, I think you're done with him. They wrapped up his story well. I think even in this movie, they used this to kind of give some closure with that. And I'm not even sure I'd want to see that. I don't want to continue more of his story. I think it ended well. He's getting, I mean, unless they find a way to do a really good, like, old man Spider-Man story, I think you just leave it be at this point. And yeah, I'm not sure he'd even want to come back. So.
I would say this: Kirsten Dunst has gone on record in the last week saying she would love to come back and play MJ again. And so that tells me that there may be rumblings out there with this. And there was multiple times you'd think that Harrison Ford would never come back to play Han Solo again and never come back to play Indiana Jones again. And he's still playing Indiana Jones. And there's a rumor out he's going to play play Han Solo again, but I doubt that's going to happen. You talk about Sam, you talk about Old Man Spider-Man. What do we know about Old Man Spider-Man? Is there much about there that you know of?
Not really, no. All I can think of is there's this one storyline where it's a different Earth, and the only reason I know about it is it's because it's where my favorite suit in the Spider-Man game comes from. But there's a version of Peter where he's been Spider-Man for a while. He gets upset, and I think he kills Green Goblin, actually. And it starts this downward spiral for him where his moral code just falls apart. He starts killing everyone. The cops are after him. And it gets to this point where he's given the chance to give up. He doesn't, and it ends up with him getting shot by the police, and he dies. It's just crazy, crazy storyline. But that's the only thing I can think of. They obviously won't go there. But I know that Old Man Spider-Man, he's had a lot to deal with in his life that's going to cause some trauma, per se.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Andrew. BB Nate is Andrew Garfield Spider-Man in the same universe as Venom.
Honestly, it could happen. I mean, it would fit. I feel like the tone fits that universe very well. There were apparently new rumors that are starting to appear more that Andrew was going to be taking over the Sonyverse for Spider-Man with Morbius and Venom, having Venom go back and having that Spider-Man there. I feel like there's a possibility that we could see Andrew as the Spider-Man for Venom and Morbius now.
Do you guys think that we see Andrew Garfield Spider-Man show up in Morbius?
Ooh. Yeah, I was talking to Nathan about this while we were waiting for, I think it was 40 minutes to get through the drive-thru at Taco Bell.
Oh my gosh. And to get our order wrong?
Every single item was wrong.
Taco Bell, if you're listening to this, you should do better. But we were sitting there talking, and we got on the topic of Morbius, and I'm like, I am so confused by this movie because we see Michael Keaton, where I guess we're assuming that's Vulture here. I don't know who else he'd be playing that randomly would show up. We see Sam Raimi's Spider-Man graffiti on a wall, and then they mention Venom, right? The thing in San Francisco, which I don't know what else it could be other than Venom.
Well, and then he literally says, "I am Venom."
Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah. Right. So what universe is this taking place in? I'm just so confused.
Taking place in the Omniverse.
Honestly. So I think if they bring in Andrew Garfield Spider-Man in this, that'll help cement, okay, that's what's happening here. This is all one little universe here that is separate from this. Although I'm still confused by Michael Keaton. I don't know. They've got a lot of explaining to do here. I'm so lost.
Sam, what did Andrew's Peter Parker mean by he was raging after Gwen's death?
You know, I'm still kind of confused by this. I don't know if that's meaning that gap when he's not Spider-Man. Because we know that we see that in Spider-Man 2, right? Gwen dies. He disappears for months on end. Then Rhino starts doing his thing and he comes back and, is supposedly Spider-Man. So I don't know if that raging means it's that time between, or if that means that he still hasn't gotten over it after he comes back. I hope it's the latter, because then that means that there's stories there that could be told that we don't know about. Stories that showcase new aspects of this character that we haven't seen before. So that's my hope. And by raging probably just means he starts letting loose a little bit more.
Well, he says flat out, I stopped pulling my
right, exactly. Yeah. Which it's kind of like Spider-Man or Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man in Spider-Man 3. He started doing that a bit. And even in Spider-Man 1, when he catches the killer, he talks about it in No Way Home. I just think we see more of that, but on a larger scale.
I agree. I mean, I do think that he meant by raging, he started to let himself go. He was frustrated, he was grieving, and he just started to notice, I have all this power. Why am I pulling my punches? And so he did stop pulling his punches. I don't think that it is that what he's talking about is right after Gwen's death and that gap. I do think that it's after I got that impression in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Okay.
He could tell he was still hurt and he didn't feel redeemed from the harm he caused. And I feel like that's why him saving MJ meant so much to him, because that was his redemption from all of that harm he caused. So I do think that there are stories that could be told there. Of course, I'd love to see those stories, but I also want to see the future of Andrew.
Any chance we see BB Nate? Any chance we see Andrew's Spider-Man 3?
Of course, I hope so. I really do. I think that it would solidify that he's not this small fry for the Spider-Man, since he was the only one that didn't get a Spider-Man 3. I feel like you could tell amazing stories with this version of Spider-Man now. I think that there's just so much that they could do. And honestly, I think that it would allow more people to see. A lot of people from this movie are starting to say, okay, I didn't notice Andrew's potential for Spider-Man until before this movie, but now I respect him even more. So he's been redeemed in the eyes of the fans as well. So I think that, yeah, it's important to have his next movie being made.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a chance after this, because I think he went all out with his performance in this movie to show that I can do this and people will like it. He was phenomenal. Let's just be honest. He was hilarious the whole time. But he had the emotions when he needed it too. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I definitely think we could see more. And I hope he gets it just for the sake that he at least has 3. Like, come on, give the man a third movie.
I honestly think that he auditioned for how he could handle the press as well, with the amount of questions he got for if he's in No Way Home. And every single time he denied it, to where people that were convinced he was in the movie were starting to second guess themselves.
I still think it's the whole movie that I watched was a fever dream at some points. I'm like, there's no way they showed up.
Well, let's talk about fever dreams. One last character that gets a tiny nod, doesn't get mentioned by name, but Sam was Max Dillon, that's Electro if you need help with that, teasing a future for Miles Morales in the MCU when he starts talking about a black Spider-Man.
Absolutely. There's no way that they touch the character of Spider-Man in this modern day and don't think about bringing in Miles. He's become huge in past years. With the movie,
the game,
both movies now, 3, because we know it's a part 1. The game, he's a great character. He's not just Spider-Man 2.0. He's his own character with a different feel, different powers to an extent. I definitely think you have to bring in this character. I hope they do. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
I agree. I do think that there's just at some point, and if not in this next Spider-Verse movie, you bring in Miles in some universe. Maybe it is the Andrew universe where we get brought into. Maybe we see Miles put into that one, or maybe we do see it in the MCU, but we will see Miles in live action sooner rather than later.
Yep.
Well, in so many different ways, Spider-Man No Way Home left us with a blank canvas for future Spider-Mans.
I see what you did there. Yeah,
stories. That means that everything seems to be on the table going forward. Yeah. The Spider-Verse has gotten a whole lot bigger. All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Anything else?
I mean, we talked about this a little bit in my segment, but
ahead of ourselves.
It's okay. We were just so excited. But Marvel's post-credits trailer for the next Doctor Strange teases more multiverse madness.
Looks so good.
Dad, just get the full court press on getting us to that red carpet.
Yeah.
Can I say pretty, please?
That'll do it.
Cherry on top.
We're press.
No, we're not.
We are more pressed than TikTokers are, right?
Well,
oh, jeez, ouch! It hurt my soul. Okay.
Shazam 2 will reportedly include Wonder Woman.
Ooh,
that's kind of an interesting little.
I like it.
I do.
Thing. Star Wars: Return of the Jedi joins the National Film Registry. So congratulations, Return of the Jedi.
I don't know what that
That's like a big deal. Like you can't tell the story of movies without including that movie.
Oh,
like
so
nationally.
It's like a classic.
It's like the Hall of Fame
considered
for movies.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
go Return of the Jedi. Now we just need Last Jedi.
Yeah, absolutely. We're a little ways away from that one. All right. This Friday, we've got part 2 of my interview with Dion Wilson about independent comics and specifically Web 3.0 and how that's leveling the playing field. So I'm excited about that. Make sure you check in with that. And again, thank you, Cufflinks.com, for sponsoring the show. Check them out. Tatooine 15 at checkout gets you 15% off your entire order. I think that's going to do it for this episode. And thank you so much for listening to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. Yeah.
If you had a good time listening, it would be awesome if you could share this with your friends.
Yeah, and of course, the show is only a small part of the Tatooine Sons world. So be sure to like us on Facebook, join our Facebook discussion group, and follow us on Twitter to get in on all the action and keep up to date on everything we got going on at TatooineSons.com.
And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast app so that you don't miss our next episode. And remember, if you drop us a review, and here's what I'm going to ask. We're going to slow this down. Pay attention. All right. If you're listening to this far in, you're one of the super listeners. You got all the way to the end.
Congratulations.
Okay?
Good job.
Even if you've already given us a review on Podchaser or iTunes or whatever, Apple Podcasts, whatever, a new feature was released just this week. Spotify now allows ratings and
Nathan,
reviews.
you can't dog on them anymore about it.
So
they listen to you.
Please go into Spotify, give us a rating, give us a review. Please help us with that. It will make a huge impact on finding new listeners new listeners finding the show. And if you do that, we're going to make a donation in your honor to one child to help a child living in extreme poverty. Spotify, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else you guys would like to say?
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you, always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.